Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Visit Tuscaloosa.
And hello again, everybody. Welcome into another edition of Tider Insider TV, as you just heard, brought to you by Visit Tuscaloosa. Alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, I'm WVUA 23 Sports Director Gary Harris. Well, Rodney, we've been doing this show for going on 25 years. We do it every week. But even with Tider Insider TV, with all that goes on at the University of Alabama, some weeks are bigger than other weeks for Alabama sports and for this show. And that's the case tonight. Kalen DeBoer got through his first road test as the Alabama football coach a couple of weeks ago against Wisconsin, but now comes the biggest test of his Alabama coaching career. And I know it's only 4 games in, but this is one of the most anticipated matchups in college football, and it's the biggest game to date, and it might wind up being the biggest game all year. We will see. But number 4, Alabama hosting number 2, Georgia, but they're still number 1 in the coaches poll. And I usually reference the AP poll, but Georgia's still number 1 in the coaches poll. Alabama's 4 in the AP and the coaches poll. So technically it's number 4 versus number 1 as well, if you like the coaches poll more than the AP poll. But this is why Kalen DeBoer came to Alabama to be a part of games like this. Georgia enters this one on a remarkable 42-game regular season winning streak. Their last loss in the regular season, November of 2020. But Alabama has beat them 2 of the last 3. That's why their winning streak is just regular season, because Alabama's beat them the last 2 times they faced them in the SEC championship game, including, of course, last December. You're watching video from that right now. Now, Georgia's defense has yet to give up a touchdown this season. They're still stingy, but their offense has not been nearly as explosive as what we've seen in the past. But Alabama has had the Dogs' number. Kirby is just 1-5 against the Crimson Tide. Of course, all those games were against Nick Saban, and Alabama ended Georgia's 29-game winning streak last year in this game, as we are talking about right now. And Alabama in 2020 played them here in Tuscaloosa. Kirby's only other trip back to T-Town, and Alabama won that one 41-24. The last time that Alabama lost to Georgia in the regular season, you have to go all the way back to 2007. Nick Saban's first year. And then, of course, the next year, that really is what kicked off the Saban era, was when they were underdogs in Athens, Rodney, and was up
31 zip
at half. Yeah. And then went on to that big win. All right, let me bring you in here. When these two teams play, even going back to Mark Richt, stakes are high, whether it's in the SEC championship game, a national championship game, or the regular season. Listen, it's a 12-team playoff. I get it. The loser of this game's not out of it by any means, but the winner probably has a little bit of a buffer, and the loser, the pressure's going to be on them.
Yeah, because, I mean, you look at Alabama, a tough schedule coming up. You still have to play Tennessee. You have to play at LSU. You've got Oklahoma on the road later. You've got Auburn at the end of the year. So there's a lot of challenges this Alabama team's going to have. And, if you can win this game, it puts you in a really nice spot, because I think 2 losses, you can still get into the playoff. I don't think 3. So I think it's a really big game for Alabama in that regard.
All right, to date, Alabama's 3-0, Georgia's 3-0. They're both coming off a bye, even there. Georgia back in the summer, there were most of the national analysts looking at this game as really just Georgia was going to roll in here and wipe the floor with Alabama. Alabama, I think, after that win at Wisconsin, looked really impressive, even though they struggled for a good portion of the game against South Florida. And then Georgia, as we know, very fortunate to win by 1 point, 13-12 at Kentucky. I think that's changed perception. But what I would warn people of, Rodney, same thing I said this morning on my radio show, doesn't really matter what Alabama did at Wisconsin, don't fall into the trap of thinking because Georgia was lucky to win or fortunate to win at Kentucky. It's got nothing to do. This game stands alone, both get off byes. This is going to be good on good. I think both teams will play well. It's going to come down to who plays the best, who takes care of the football, doesn't have turnovers, doesn't have costly penalties. Probably more about who makes the least mistakes in this game, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's usually what it comes down to. But you're right. You issued a good warning, Gary, because I'm going to tell you, you remember the 2021 Alabama-Auburn game? Alabama goes in, Bryce Young drives them down the field. They did not play well the entire game. Everybody said, no way you're going to go up against this generational Georgia defense. And Bryce Young lit them up for 421 yards and 3 touchdowns. Last year, coming off a really bad performance against Auburn for the most part. You get the 4th and 31. People saying, no way you're going to beat Georgia. And you know what? Even after Alabama beat them, people still didn't think Alabama beat them, right? I mean, they didn't give Alabama the credit that they really deserved winning that game. A lot of people said Georgia was the best team in the country. But it is what it is. Now they come to Tuscaloosa, and it's, this is a game, like you said, Gary, back in the summer, people were saying this is at a 7-point, Georgia's probably a 7-point favorite. Now I'm seeing places that are saying 1.5. So it's really kind of drawn closer as we've got nearer the game. Some
news and notes as you continue to look at video of Georgia. Alabama leads the all-time series, 43 wins, 26 losses, 4 ties. As we said, Kirby just 1-5 against the team that he was the defensive coordinator for 9 years. Alabama in the regular season has really had Georgia's number. Other than the one national championship loss, the Tide has kind of owned the Bulldogs. But this will be the first time Georgia's been here since 2020, but that was a COVID year, so the stadium wasn't full. This is going to have a lot more of a special atmosphere. Alabama hasn't been an underdog at home and since 2007 against LSU. That's 90 straight games. That's been broken. So there is a lot going on here as far as the analysts and the people that set lines and look at the numbers and all that kind of stuff. But the big thing is for Georgia coming in here, Kirby Smart said it yesterday. He's called Jalen Milroe the most unique football player in the country right now. Here's the Georgia head coach talking about how even in a bad play, Jalen Milroe can make you pay.
There is no design to a play that you can draw up and then say, well, I'm pretty sure this is going to happen on this play with him, because you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, sometimes the worst thing you can do is cover everybody with him. And sometimes the best thing you can do is cover everybody. It just depends. Are you capable of getting him down on the ground and tackling him at times? What matchups do you have? He is as different a football player in college football as I've played against in a long time.
Rodney, you heard it right there from Kirby Smart. He saw Milroe up close and personal last December in the SEC Championship game. It wasn't Jalen's best game, but particularly after Georgia got it back down to have a chance to win it, he put the game away with his legs and also made some really critical throws. He's a dynamic player. I know Alabama fans keep saying he needs to be a little more consistent, needs to get the ball out quicker. But, boy, when you're having to face him, you got a little bit of a taste of it, what it must be like for defensive coaches trying to draw up a game plan against Jalen Milroe.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think Georgia used 2 spies on him last year for the most part. Whether they'll do that again or not on Saturday, they may mix it up. I'm sure that they will. It's going to be really interesting to see how they decide to defend Milroe because I think he's a little better now in terms of he's comfortable or seems more comfortable, Gary. I think he's going to have opportunities to make throws. Seems really, settling in this offense. That's what we saw against Wisconsin. Can hurt you down the field, can hurt you running. He seems less reluctant to run. Now, you mentioned he did hurt them last year with his legs. He made some really crucial plays. He improvised. This is what Kirby was talking about. You remember that little short 3rd down toss that he made to Isaiah Bond? It was a big play because Alabama was settled for a field goal. They'd have probably lost the game. Instead, it turns into a touchdown.
On the other side, Carson Beck's not off to a great start. He's still good. He lost McConkey. He lost Brock Bowers. They're both in the NFL. Georgia doesn't seem to be as explosive on offense as they've been in years past. Would you agree with that?
I agree with that based on what we've seen. Watching the games, I'm not sure they have the outside players that we've seen in the past. You mentioned Bowers. I mean, he was just an incredible player. I do think, Oscar Delp's a really good player at the tight end. Lawson Lucky is another good H-back type guy. But really, when you look at their receivers, Arian Smith has a ton of speed. He's dangerous. He's really dangerous. Dylan Bell. They've got a couple of other guys. Dominic Lovick, really good player. But I don't know, Gary, that they've got those difference makers outside. They've been a little banged up on the offensive line. Tate Ratledge, their top offensive guard, is out. So it's going to be really interesting. Can Alabama get pressure on Beck? Because if you do, all of a sudden that changes him as a quarterback. He's a 70% passer. Yeah. You get pressure on him, it's a little bit different.
We saw in that Kentucky game, though, he got shook a couple of times. They got to him, and no quarterback, no matter how talented, likes pressure. All right, Rod, it's now time for Coach Talk. And as we mentioned, Georgia's currently a 2-point favorite against Alabama. If the line holds, it'll be the first time the Tide has been a home underdog since 2007, snapping a 90-game streak. Alabama head coach Kalen DeBoer isn't worried about any of that, whether the Tide's an underdog or a favorite. That stuff, as Nick Saban would say, it's just outside the process. Coach DeBoer is focused on what Alabama needs to do to be successful in the game.
There's going to be, even if there's one doubter, right, it falls along with the Lank mentality. And that's what we get to do is let any of the naysayers, know what we're capable of, and that's no one's fault. That's what it is. That's a tribute to what people see in Georgia and how high level of a football team that they have. And then for us, it's just a matter of doing what we can do. We feel like we have a football team that is a top tier team that just every day is going to continue to get better. That's not just this week, that's not just next week, that's all season long.
No surprise, ESPN Game Day will be here. ABC is going to have a lot of new camera setups, ISO cams. The Game Day crew is staying, Rodney. Usually they leave, but they're staying, and they're going to have a show on ABC prior to the game. This is not just another game. Now, Rod, good news is Alabama's used to this. Remember when Saban got here for probably 7 or 8 years, Alabama-LSU was the biggest game in the country. Iron Bowl was the biggest game in the country. And probably going back to 2012, Alabama and Georgia has been the biggest game in the country. Alabama-Clemson for a while. So the Tide is used to this, but still, it's exciting. And as I said, there's some extra juice surrounding a game like this.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, especially with it being Kalen DeBoer's first SEC game. I mean, what a way to open your SEC career. With Georgia coming, game day here, a lot of excitement. You're going to have a lot of recruits coming in, Gary. This is what it's all about.
Yeah.
Alabama, Georgia.
And if you think it can get bigger or can't get bigger, think again. Former President Donald Trump is planning to attend the Alabama-Georgia game. The former president has routinely attended high-profile college football games over the past few years. Most recently, Trump was president for Clemson, South Carolina last November. We remember in 2019 for the Alabama-LSU game, he was here in Tuscaloosa. Now, bad news is Alabama lost that game. But listen, I think it's, a lot of people, I don't get into politics that much, but it just adds to the flavor and adds to the excitement of the game. Well, still to come on Tider Insider Television, Alabama soccer opens up SEC play. We'll have highlights of the home opener against number 19 Tennessee, and Alabama basketball gets another commitment from a top 40 prospect, and there may be more talent on the way. A big recruiting weekend coming up too, and we'll be getting to your phone calls, emails, and tweets. And I know, again, we're not over the air at a lot of different with a lot of different TV providers, so phone calls may be down, but we've already got some emails, and we'll welcome your calls if you are watching us at 205-348-9882. That's 205-348-9882, or you can email us at the address on your screen. We'll be right back with more Tider Insider TV. Remember when college basketball practice didn't start until October 15th? I do. Not anymore. Both the men and women have started practicing at Alabama. This is a video from the women's practice, the first practice yesterday. Christy Curry's got a good team. They went to the NCAA tournament last year. She's got a lot of players back, including star Sarah Ashley Barker. Watch out for Alabama women, and we'll get to see some men's practice coming up later in the week as well. Welcome back to TITV, presented by Visit Tuscaloosa. Alongside Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Let's get to men's basketball. Nate Oates just continues to recruit at a high clip. Another top 40 player committing to Alabama. 4-star London Jemison. He's listed as a power forward, but a lot of people say he's versatile enough to play the small forward, and that's what you look for at Alabama. Guys that can do a lot of different things, but 6'8", blue blood list of offers, but he decided to narrow it down to Alabama, Kansas, and Louisville. Eventually went with the Crimson Tide. He joins Amari Allen, who committed earlier this month in the 2025 class for the Crimson Tide so far. And big visit weekend coming up, including the nation's #1 player, A.J. Dabansa from out in Utah. He is a guy who is like I said, #1 player in the country. Also, Braden Burries and Malik Thomas, all top 25 type players. This could be a historic recruiting weekend for the Crimson Tide. Well, the Alabama soccer team had the SEC opener on Sunday against the Tennessee Vols. Both teams had several opportunities at the net early in this one, but could not finish. This one went back and forth. A good match. Watch this goal right there by Alabama, but 2-2. This one ends in a tie, Alabama and Tennessee. And Crimson Tide Volleyball is set to open SEC play, and they're looking to do a lot coming up this season. We'll have more on that coming up. Also, we're going to be getting to your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Again, I know we're on limited over-the-air outlets for TV, but if you're watching us, you can give us a call, 205-348-9882. Phone calls and emails coming up next on TITV. As I said before the break, Alabama volleyball opens the SEC season tomorrow night on the road in Knoxville against Tennessee. Rashenda Reed, the head coach, entering her third year, 11-18 last year. Alabama's 8-3 in the non-conference schedule. They lost twice last week. Florida State, you understand, but losing at home to North Alabama, 3-0, that was a little bit of a head scratcher. Alabama will be on the SEC network twice this week, tomorrow at 6 against the Vols and Sunday at 5 at Auburn. All right, it is time to welcome in some phone calls and emails. As I said, I know that a lot of the on-air providers we're not on right now, so we figured we wouldn't get as many calls, but we do have our email question of the day. And our email question of the day is brought to you by KDM Service Corporation. When it comes to heating and air conditioning, KDM Service Corporation serves your family like our family. Will Bama's new swarm defense be successful? That's actually off of Twitter. So our email today is a Twitter question of the day from Goal Line Stan. Rodney, so far I think it's been pretty successful. Now, granted, they're going to see Georgia on Saturday night, so that'll be their biggest test. But I really like the way they got after the quarterback on a couple weeks ago in Wisconsin.
What a hit by Overton, huh? You know what? Right now, Gary, I was looking at the numbers really look good, actually. I mean, you look at third down numbers, they're only giving up like 16% or something. That's incredible. You look at scoring defense, they're only giving up 8 points. Gary, Alabama's averaging 49 points a game. When you look at those stats, you see 49 offensively, you're only giving up 8. Pretty good right now.
All right, phone lines are open. 205-348-9882 is our TITV hotline. Let's get to another email question. And this one is coming from Reed and McCalla. How many designed QB runs will we see for Milroe on Saturday? It's a good question, Rodney. You're going to see some. I mean, you know, his legs are a big part of Alabama's offensive attack. I don't think they want to make it their primary offensive focus, but what do you think in terms of called runs in this game?
Got to use him. You know, we got to use him. And, you know, Gary, again, there's been some times when he seemed really comfortable running the ball. There's been times that he's been indecisive. But when he is really confident, when he's running the ball, he's probably the most dangerous quarterback in the country. So you've got to use him on some of the runs. Quarterback draws, really good. All
right, thanks for those that Twitter question and that email question. Still to come on TITV, hear about some former Alabama stars, fast starts on their new teams, our Bama in the NFL segments coming up. And again, I know not a lot of people are able to watch us over the air right now, but if you're watching on the stream or you're watching on the app, you can get through. A lot of people, when we're on cable and satellite, have a hard time getting through. But tonight, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. So if you are able to watch us live, go ahead and give us a call. We'd love to hear from you. We'll be right back with more TITV. It's time to check in on Bama in the NFL. And, yeah, the Cowboys, Derrick Henry had a lot of interest in signing with the Cowboys. Jerry Jones said they couldn't afford him. He came back to haunt him on Sunday. 151 yards, 2 touchdowns as the Ravens held on. Almost blew a big lead, but they won 28-25 in Dallas. Henry looking good. They're figuring out how to use him there with Lamar Jackson. Amari Cooper had a big game for the Browns, even though they lost at home to the Giants. He had 2 touchdowns as part of his 7-catch, 86-yard afternoon. Still one of the best route runners in the league. And probably the coolest play of the day involved Jahmyr Gibbs and Amon-Ra St. Brown for the Lions. Watch this, the old hook and ladder right there. Boy, Gibbs can fly. And he also had 83 yards on the ground in the Lions' victory over the Cardinals. All right, we do have a phone call to get to here on this edition of TITV. Robbie is with us over in Northport. Hey, Robbie, man, how you doing?
Good, guys. Love the show.
Thanks.
Hey, are they really going to make Nick Saban on College Game Day pick between his school that he still has an office at Bryant-Denny Stadium and his former assistant, his prodigal son? Are they going to make him put on?
Robbie, my guess is they will. Listen, man, Nick Saban is doing a phenomenal job. I think he's the best part about that show. And he breaks it all down. Now, he may abstain. He may say, hey, I can't pick this one. But my guess is, when it comes his turn to pick, he's going to pick.
It's part of it now. Yeah. You know, it'll be interesting which direction he goes, in this pick. Because I do think this. I do think that he's going to pick what he thinks. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. They're going to be set up on the quad over there with Denny Chimes in the background. It's a great-looking shot on Saturday.
You keep up with picks. How are his picks?
I know he had Arkansas against Auburn last week. I think he's 2-1. If I could be wrong on that. All right. Let's get to an email question. And this is from Myron in Tuscaloosa. Hey, I like this question. Who is Alabama's best pass rusher? I think it's open for conversation. What would you say, Rodney?
You know, look, I like that sack Quandarius Robinson made in that first game, but LT Overton, wow. I mean, he's pretty dynamic, too. Really excited about a lot of those guys. But now, look, I think this, too. Kane Womack's kind of said, look, we haven't shown everything. We're going to do some more things. Just stay tuned. So let's see how some of these guys develop, because they have some guys that I think certainly can pressure the quarterback. And
some good news. Quay Russaw, there's a possibility he could play against Georgia. So that would be good. All right, let's get to another email. I hear the phone ringing, too. I don't know if I have time for it. They tell me to get one more email. Patty in Moundville, do y'all think Alabama will use trick plays against Georgia? Rodney, yeah, they may have a couple in there. You're not going to win with trick plays, but they might have a couple little twists and.
You know, watching DeBoer at Washington, they use them sometimes, so we'll see.
All right, thanks for the phone calls and emails. And we're going to come back and talk about a former Alabama golfer picking up his first professional victory. That's coming up on TITV. Former Alabama golfer Frankie Capan, who transferred out of the program, but spent a couple years in Tuscaloosa, picked up his first professional win at the Korn Ferry Tour's Nationwide Children's Hospital Championship. That's a big one, because that's going to give him a good opportunity to move on to the PGA Tour. All right, welcome back into TITV. I know a lot of you have been waiting for our predictions, Alabama and Georgia. Rodney, as always, you're going to lead us off.
Well, hey, this is a game everybody's been waiting for. Kalen DeBoer's first SEC game against Georgia. Offense, Kalen DeBoer. Defense, Kirby Smart. Kirby's 1-5 against Alabama. I think he's 1-6. 24-21 Alabama.
You know, Rod, I've picked against Alabama on several different occasions with Alabama playing Georgia, but not this time. I just think that Alabama at home is going to be too much for the Dogs. Go ahead and pop up the screen. I've got even a little bigger margin, 27-17. I like Alabama over Georgia. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Tider Insider TV. We appreciate you tuning in, presented by Visit Tuscaloosa. Don't forget, if you missed any of tonight's show, you can catch a replay on at 10:30 tonight following the news at 10, or online anytime at WVUA23.com. We're going to leave you with some video of Keelan Russell, the Alabama quarterback commit with a lot of touchdowns in his game last Friday night. Good night.